Hello, welcome to Phonogenics 101. We have a special motherfucking birthday edition tonight, celebrating the birthday of our friend Jill Jones.
Yay!
First of all, thanks to all my subscribers, people who subscribe to my Patreon. So that means I don't have to wait tables for that extra money. You give it to me instead.
Oh, wow.
So I told Jill before we started this podcast that we are going to embarrass her a little bit because, you know, Jill's our friend, but we also love her as an artist. And tonight, we're not only celebrating Jill the friend, we have 3 Jill Jones t-shirts in the house. I would have worn mine, but I don't fit in it anymore. So tonight, we are going to talk about Jill Jones's debut album from 1987, the self-titled. And I'm going to have to go on a little rant here about Jill Jones, the artiste. You know, Jill is sometimes associated with Prince, but I feel that does such a disservice to your legacy. Like, I just look at you as such a free spirit. You have such an interesting legacy that is all 100% yours. One of the best singers, one of the best lyricists that I've ever known in my life. Your writing and singing is in a class of its own with its ability to emote. Like, you're just in a class of your own. I don't think you or the rest of the world gives yourself nearly enough credit. So Jill has released 4 albums. This first album from 1987, which is kind of a pop R&B album, I guess you could say, if you had to distill it down. Then there was an indie, very dark album called 2 from 2001. An acoustic album of the Grand Royals, which I think was 2004, 2005. Mm-hmm. And then the recently rediscovered dance gem, I Am, which me and Jeffrey were freaking over just a couple weeks ago. So over the next year, I'd like to have a podcast about each of the 4 albums because I love them all. They're just all so good. We are going to go around the circle and everyone can introduce themselves. And then we'll jump into talking about Jill's album track by track. Let's start with Neil. So I think the history of Jill Jones may not be documented the way it needs to be. So I'd like to go back to 1999 when I had just moved to Florida. I was sitting on my dial-up connection. I had gay.com in one window, and I had jilljones.net. I was such a fan of Jill's music, and I put in Jill Jones into Google, and this website came up, and it was such an informative website. I was like, holy shit, Jill Jones is so cool now. Like, when I rediscovered you in 2000, you were so indie. Your music had such a depth and darkness to it that I was like, because, you know, a lot of people from the 80s, like, we're just coming out with such crap. And we're such, like legacy artists. And you were just so cool. So Neil was the one that built that website. So, Neil, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the early days?
God, I'm going to have to put my memory back now. Yeah, so hi, I'm Neil. I'm from Scotland, not England, Jeremy.
I'm so sorry. How ignorant. I'm so ignorant.
Big difference. Yeah, so I'd set up, first of all, a kind of mailing list. It was through the Yahoo groups, or I think it was. It was like a just at Jill Jones kind of thing. And then I decided to set up a website. I think it was just maybe before the tracks from 2 got announced. I'm not too sure, but I remember I got in touch with Mark Unthank, who was Extra Record, and asked Luke and said, Luke, I'm going to do this website thing. Is it okay? You know, and it was And I did an interview. It was, you know, the questions were ridiculous looking back, but, you know, it was the naivety of, you know, probably me being mid-20s or whatever at the time, and thinking, oh my God, I'm actually, this person that I love and admire is going to answer these questions. It was bizarre. It was surreal. You know what I mean? And it took off. It took off really quite well. It won awards. The website. I think I had a pretty. There was a discography, if I remember rightly, which I kind of illustrated. With the album, and I thought it was funny because when all the cease and desist orders went out from Paisley Park, I thought, oh my God, if that website was still up and running, it would be a lot of blank stuff there, you know. It was weird, but the more I got, the more I did, because I think I'd written a like you, Jeremy, you'd written an essay once about how you'd got into Jill and things, and I'd written, you know, how I'd come across her. And it wasn't primarily through the Prince music, funnily enough. It was, I saw it. I was in Perth in Scotland, and in a record shop one day, and I saw it, and I thought, I asked the guy to play it, and I just fell in love with it. It was the 7-inch version, obviously, and it didn't have the strings at the beginning. You know, it just went do 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 do. You know, kind of started off that way.
Yeah.
And then I read reviews in various magazines. Some of the reviews weren't that great. I remember.
No, they were mean. Some of them even.
The one that stuck in my throat and really stuck in my throat. It was a guy, and he used to be on a. Well, you lived in England, Jill, obviously. EastEnders, and he played a guy called Kelvin Carpenter, and he was the guest reviewer on Smash Hits. You know, and he said, "She's not the singer she thinks she is. She sounds like she's got a throat infection."
Yeah,
right?
I remember him.
And I was, and then he had the audacity. He was on a record because they brought out. He was in a group in EastEnders, and they brought out this song that they recorded. You know, which was like 4 of them stood around a Casio keyboard, which was like when the record. It was like Fairlight. You know what?
Yes.
Ridiculous. And he was awful, and I've never seen him on television again. Thank God. You know.
Thank God. He was horrible.
Fuck him.
But, and so I listened to that record in that shop that day, and I turned to the guy and I said, "Can you put the other side on?" So I got the B side, but I didn't have enough money to buy it, right? Because I'd just not long started full-time work, and I was limited funds.
Right.
And I think I wanted the 7-inch peach vinyl of If I Was Your Girlfriend or something like that, you know, and so it was a toss-up. But when I did buy, I think I bought the album first. I got the album, and it was just like, it was a journey, you know, and it's still, I've listened to it before I came on here tonight. I only got in about midnight or something, you know, and I've been sick, so I've listened to the album a couple of times, but it's just, it's one of those albums that it's timeless. I've always said that. There's a couple of tracks in it that I'm not too keen on, which I'll go into on a track by track thing, but it's like in the video with the guy that does for Mia Bocca, with the guy that does the talking bit when he said the world ain't ready for you yet.
Yes.
I honestly believe that is so true. The world was not ready for that album, or the singles. And it's fantastic. It is timeless. You can listen to that album, and I don't think you can pinpoint any era for it. It's not got an 80s sound. It's not got a 70s sound or 90s. It is just an album that will stand the test of time, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and I love all the albums, don't get me wrong. I'm not bigging this one up more than, you know, because I love all of them, but that was definitely the best of the Paisley Park label releases. And it's such a shame that the you know, whoever's bringing out all the Prince Estate, who doing all these re-releases, they aren't looking at the albums that came out on Paisley Park as well, you know,
right?
As well as the Prince. That I honestly think, even if we got a best of Paisley Park, you know, or choice compilations, you know, like I'd love your album out. I'd love Mavis Staples' Time Waits for No One.
Yes.
I think you can still get somehow Taja Savel's one. Which my mind
she went through Reprise.
Yeah. Oh, what, with the first album?
Yeah.
Ah, right. I never knew, because I remember Love Is Contagious was a hit here in Britain.
Yeah, like, she went through Reprise because she was really close with Michael Austin, those guys at Warner's. Yeah, she wasn't really not really. Yeah. I don't know what
had big
happened.
Park logo on it. Yeah.
Totally. And I don't know what happened with that thing, but I know that Warner Brothers was a lot more instrumental in that record than he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, she got a hit. You know, Love Is Contagious was quite big in Britain, actually. I remember it at the time. Yeah. And I did like it, but it wasn't a Mia Bocca. You know what I mean? Mia Bocca was it. You know, and that should have been up there. You know. So anyway, so that's how I got to Jill, because I'm going to be here all night. You know, talking. So I set up the website, and it did quite well. I had to let it go, unfortunately, because the relationship I was in at the time years ago split up, and the guy kept the domain name and blah blah blah. But we kept in touch over the years, and 2 came out. I loved it. It was fabulous.
And I still have the framed picture that you sent.
For your wedding.
You and Robert both sent to us for our wedding. It's right beside my bed. I keep it beside on my bedside table.
And and you have, personally speaking, you've been there when I've been at my lowest. I think Jeremy knows.
You too, for me, boy. I mean, I've had my moments.
We've all been through some shit, haven't we?
Yeah.
That was tough, though, losing Robert. But it was just so out of the blue, and I didn't know how you were gonna. And then you lost your eyesight, and then you went through. I mean, and all of that was a part of that.
Yeah,
all of it.
Awful, and it's still ongoing. There is still issues, but I don't bow down to things.
But I really admired how then you got into your music, of course, and then you started you were always up to something, taking a class, doing something to improve yourself. And your brother was so sweet. He was definitely so worried about you. He and I occasionally would chat, but the thing is that it was such a walk that we could hold your hand, but that pain, we knew it, but it's like nobody can take that away. It was like just praying that something happened that would give you some kind of peace. And then, you started having, I think, spiritual things going on with Robert's passing, which gave some closure, which was really very nice.
Still happening. Those sort of things still happen, actually, funny enough. It's changed my entire outlook on life, spiritually and physically, I suppose. It's
yeah, it was just not that. Those weren't good years.
No.
Thank you.
Well, drink up. Here's to better days.
Next.
All right, so Seth, you and Jill go back many, many years, correct?
I've known this lady for probably about 10 years now, Jill, something like that.
Maybe so. Yeah, actually,
it's been about 10 years. And, we have laughed together. We have cried together.
Yeah.
We have almost beat people up together. we have traveled and roomed together.
Yes.
That's my sister.
We went on Spirit Air together.
Complete my Spirit Air. Together. We have, we have had quite a journey in these years, and we have went through a lot of things together, and it's been some hard things, but one thing I can say is if I don't talk to Jill for 4 months, we pick up the phone and we get on the phone and the laughs start and the talking shit starts and all the Scorpio moon starts and all the shit starts. It's like we never have, missed a beat. And, interestingly enough, once we got to know each other and once we met, there were all of these little chords that connected us that we didn't even know about. Or we did know about, but it was like putting a puzzle together. Like Chris Bruce, who did the 2 album with her. I knew Chris when I was 14 years old. He lived with me and my mom when I was 14.
Yeah.
My mother was in Graffiti Bridge. And she used to she used to always say to me, my mother, Mallia Franklin, from Parliament Funkadelic, she was in George's scene. And my mother used to say to me before I ever met Jill, she would say to me, and I've shared this with Jill, that my mother would always say that Jill to Prince was who she was to George Clinton, which was she sang on Everybody's Everything. She helped to make everybody else stars and create their sound. And there was a kinship between my mom and Jill. And I think because they were both mixed and they had some of the same challenges coming up in the business and things like that. There was just a connection with me and Jill.
True.
And
very true.
And, you know, and it was just like, she was my sister. And I remember Jill saying to me, very interestingly enough, you know, she said, you know, you knew me, you knew us before you ever knew us, and we ever knew that we knew you, and we all came together, but you were meant to be with us. And
yes,
you know, we created together. We did the I Miss You video together, and it was literally me and Jill.
totally.
We did that whole video ourselves.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that's my sister. You know, I can talk about Jill forever.
We just love you so much, Jill. We just love you so much.
I'm starting to feel like this is your life. You know, 60s or 50s or whatever that was. And now coming out.
Keep drinking. All right, Jeffrey Dicker.
Yeah, Jeffrey from LA. Been a fan forever. And then totally randomly, my ex-boyfriend was working in film production with one of Jill's childhood friends, Lisa. And my ex-boyfriend was famously not a Prince fan. And he comes home one day and he goes, "Do you know of a singer named Jill Jones?" And I'm like, "How do you know a singer named Jill Jones?" And he was like, "I interviewed somebody today and she's, they know each other." And I was like, okay, I need to like meet this person, you know? And so sure enough, they started working together, and I don't remember how it happened. It was around my birthday or something like that. And Lisa, Jill's friend, somehow called Jill, and the next thing I know, like I got like a letter. You sent me like a letter and like a photo, and I was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then it was like, if we're ever in LA, we'll totally meet up. And then flash forward to the next time they came to LA was the day of the family jam.
Yes.
So the second that Jill was reuniting with like every person that like is like my, you know, dream people to see, I'm like standing there like I was a fly on the wall, hearing every conversation, and I'm like,
I was thinking of that, like the car. Lisa had an issue with her car that day, or something was going on. And yeah, I didn't even, you just felt so familiar that all of a sudden I was just like, and anyway, all this shit, you know, whatever my issue, you heard it all that day. Yes.
It was amazing. It was definitely amazing.
And I forget it was your first time meeting me. So you must have been like,
no, it was like literally like overload. I mean, but then the funny thing was that it ended with, you know, if you ever come to New York, look us up. And so little did I know, like a year later, I moved to New York. And I was like, guess what?
You did. And then we'd hang out in New York.
Yeah. So,
and now I love his books. Love his books, and
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And the three of us hung out famously in New York when Jill came up on stage with me. Yep.
We did. That was when I was having my nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
I was going through that weird breakup, and I don't know who I turned out to be, but we have a great picture where it looks like I am having a blast.
At Lucky Ching's. We're at Lucky Ching's.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah, the anniversary of that was like a few weeks, like last week, I think.
Yeah, because I think I saw the picture pop up, memories or something, and I was like, oh shit, I remember that T-shirt, that blue tank top I had. Dave, you know, Dave is weird. He goes in and out, and you know, I love Dave, but he's probably could be back in Afghanistan taking pictures again, because you know he does this war correspondent war stuff, and I mean, I don't know. I know he's always traveling and up to something. Yeah, I heard from him a few weeks back, but yeah, he's the elusive Dave Honnell. He comes back in and puts together a project. Jill, you got music? We're going to make a record out of this. That's how the 2 record happened.
Oh, wow.
It's like Dave had been like in like war-torn areas of Afghanistan, right? Or, I mean, you know, and he comes back, listens to the music. Next thing I know, it's like, we're putting it out. Oh, okay. Great. I mean, he gets things done. I'm kind of a procrastinator, but yeah, I was just like, wow. Yeah, love that.
I did email him just in case he was around for tonight.
Yeah, he's probably, I'm telling you, over there, you know, because I guess he's an action man of action.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's got to be some action going over now. I guess we're taking troops out.
Goodness.
But he'll be back and he'll have an idea. And, you know, no, he's sweet. He sent me all of the DATs. Remember, everything was on DAT in those days. Yeah. And I got like this postage thing one day. I was like, well, here, I thought you might want to use it. I was like, okay, great. You know, Dave is such a great person because he knew Uncle Earl and he knew my mom. And I love that Dave just gets shit done.
Yeah.
Without all the bullshit. Of all the people in the industry, Dave is a real no strings attached kind of guy. And he doesn't leech off of you forever, you know, and as if you would. He actually tries to help people and he does something, which I could say that about each one of you. But like business people in this industry, I mean, they've got shit now where it's like perpetuity. It's like, it gives me such an agita that it's like you're marrying, even beyond marrying people, because they want shit in perpetuity. And that's the big drawback about the creative process. And, you know, but to meet somebody who put together a record for me without, you know, all the BS that goes behind it, that's rare. And I've never met anybody other than like my close friends like you, Jeremy, or, you know, Jeffrey, or who else I've worked with. I've never seen that outside of probably this little room here. Seth, really, you guys are an anomaly because it doesn't exist. You know, when you get a manager and all that stuff in this music business, trust me, it's all nonsense. It's just they killed the whole everything about it.
I knew this was gonna be a special room.
It is.
All right, Melissa.
Well, I'm here like the fly on the wall tonight because you guys are all friends, and I met Jill a few years ago through Danielle, but we don't really talk.
Yes. Yep.
At the Interbelt. I was telling them before you got on, don't take offense to this, but I haven't heard this album till 2 weeks ago. I've heard songs from it.
It's hard to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It's hard to find. So I listened to it the first time 2 weeks ago, all the way through. Mm-hmm. And since then, I've listened to it quite a few times. So just bear with me.
No. I'm thankful that you listened to it. Yeah.
Oh,
it's
no.
a little all over the place.
I didn't know about it back then. I didn't know. Like, I was telling them I had no clue.
Well, are you even, how old? You look so much younger. I didn't even think you just like
I'm
popped
52.
up. Oh my God, get out of here. Oh, well, you have no excuses then. I thought you were 25. Damn it.
My daughter is 25, but
you look amazing.
And the thing I love about Melissa on the podcast is I'll be like, oh, that song's terrible. Melissa's always like, I like it, because we're going through the Prince albums. I'm like, ooh, that's a bad one. Melissa's like, I like that one.
They don't like any of the ballads. They never like any of the ballads.
But you look so young even in person. That is what's so wow. Amazing.
Thank you.
Congrats. You've been living good.
So speaking of the Interbelt in Ohio, let me go ahead and introduce Clark Brooks.
You guys have a story.
Oh my God. That should be a movie.
That was a funny night. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, especially convincing the security guard that the main act was not who he thought was the main act due to his unavailability. But my story is I have, of course, knew who Jill was in the 80s. And in 87, I was hoovering up anything Prince related I get my hands on. So, of course, I bought Jill's album. And I think Wendy and Lisa's first album came out right around the same time. And for whatever reason, Jill's album just really stuck with me. And it was in my cassette player in my car all summer long. And I probably blew through 2 cassettes, and I bought it on vinyl. And then flash forward to MySpace, and it had to be 2004, 2005. And I just reached out to Jill and sent her a note like, hey, I've been a fan forever. And you replied with a genuine note with a joke about, oh, well, you must have picked, I recorded that album when I was 13 or something. You made some joke. And it wasn't just some, oh, thanks for your support and blow. I was really sincere and genuine. I was really impressed by that. And then we made friends on other various social media platforms over the years. And like you sent an unsolicited sympathy note when my mom passed. You've also promoted and advocated some of my silly creative stuff, unsolicited.
You gotta stay creative. That's the thing.
But I didn't tag you in any of that stuff. You just found it and then just organically decided to share it with people, which I always thought was very cool. So, I mean, you appreciate that when anybody does that. So, and we hadn't even met at that point. So I've always been impressed by you just being a genuine person and not just, oh, this star that we know of, but, and then of course the Inner Belt story, which again should be a movie. We could do a whole show on the Inner Belt.
I remember all you guys in the room. I was like curling my hair and I don't know.
Yeah, it was like campfire story. It was like campfire stories. We're all like surrounding, like, tell us about this, tell us about that.
Yeah.
And then you said you didn't have a ride to the club, which made Jeremy and I your unofficial entourage tonight. So
yeah.
And then I think I ran your autograph and picture line after you performed. So
yeah, which I was surprised there were people there like that, you know, because Danielle's like, oh, I'm doing this. I was like, okay. And I was like, oh my God.
That was a big night.
So nice. Yeah. I was really like, oh my God. JJ Vickers was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were in the VIP area.
Thing. I can't believe he flaked.
I'm going to message him and tell me he needs to jump on.
Yeah.
So speaking of campfire stories, one question I forgot to ask, and I'm going to deviate a little bit.
I stole his coat. Sorry, by the way.
Oh, you
I still
did?
have it. Mm-hmm.
So a question I didn't get to ask that I've been meaning to ask forever, and it bugs me that I always forget. Are you Sophie on the extended version of Kiss as to Saul's Prince?
Yes, that's me.
I'm going to sleep so much better tonight.
Yes, it's me.
Oh my God, is that Prince on television?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's not PC anymore, but yeah, I mean, I have I guess we just used to crack each other up. Yeah, I don't know how we got in doing silly things like that. There's a couple other things that we did too.
Okay,
personalities.
All right, cool.
I could always be somebody talking like this, you know. Yeah, it was like just stupid stuff like that all day.
Okay, so Jill, I don't mean to cut in, you guys, but I have to tell you this. You know, we filmed our first episode of the podcast, me and Apollonia.
Oh, okay.
And I made, I always gush about you anyway. But I made a very brazen statement that everybody may not like.
Uh-oh.
But, we were talking about how we met, but I believe this in all my heart and soul. I said Jill Jones was the first lady of the Paisley Park Sound.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
and
that's accurate.
Look, you, and we've talked about this, I believe that you and Lisa were it. You were the sound.
Yeah.
But you were a little different because he used you to create the blueprint for others.
Yeah.
And no one ever matched that blueprint either, in my opinion.
And that's the difference. And I was like, well, everybody may not like this statement.
They may not. They might come for you, but you know what? Who I think
they're Prince fans.
I know, right? I do love the one when I first met him and I started finding how capable he was with vocals was what he did with the Vanity 6 record, because I knew that she didn't have the pipes, Vanity, or really, only Brenda. But I knew why he selected why he made his choices that he did, and I loved how he could really take anybody in the studio and make them sing.
Yeah.
But with that project in particular, he could find the real crux of it and their voice and their tone and he really worked out all the edges.
Yeah.
Like, even if you hear Brenda's a little more tough, even her vocal pattern when she speaks, she's tougher, she's harder, she's straight, direct, to the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that kind of created the image in a way too, on its own. And then you had Vanity, who would be like, you know, well, I don't know, I was just thinking that maybe, you know, whatever. So then he could, you know, take that tonal thing and put that in. And then there was Susan, who had this really rich speaking voice,
right?
Which actually, she was doing ASMR before anybody else was, because the way her tongue would hit her teeth when she sang or when she spoke on a microphone was, I know this sounds really crazy for people, but you'll hear it sometimes with announcers, and they will sometimes, certain people, their tongues hit their teeth, and it really is very nice, you know. It's like it's a comforting, it's weird, but I loved how he was able to do that. And so, but thank you for, you know, I think that moment with all of us was a moment that you could never make it up again. It was definitely faded.
And one thing I can say, you know, our girl Apollonia, she always says Jill was the fourth member of Apollonia 6 because she sang on all of our stuff.
Oh yeah,
she sang on everything.
But you know, he tried to respect her wishes too, where he didn't want to infringe upon her, where, you know, because her managers had come to him and were like, we don't want anybody singing on anything. I don't know if she ever knew that, but they did. And which is why none of us went around. I didn't gloat to her, oh, I'm doing this and that, because that wasn't my place. I knew what my job was, but also the whole point of me singing on anything was, or underneath anything, was to instill a little more confidence with singers who weren't used to hearing themselves or used to performing live, because that was the end goal for Apollonia 6. It was like they were going to go and tour. It didn't manifest. But all of that was meant to create, you don't want somebody going on a microphone live or anywhere and they're totally not confident. It doesn't work. So I think that's what I was supposed to be doing.
And for all the people that don't know, Jill sang behind the pink curtain behind Vanity 6 every single show.
I never could leave after. I would always, I couldn't come late to the shows. I couldn't come like Wendy and the Revolution or Prince's band at the time. They weren't the Revolution then, but no, they were. But
they were. Anyway. You were an original member. You were an original member of the Revolution.
I had to be there at the very beginning at 7 or from our sound check. A lot of times people could go back and chill out till their set came. The time wouldn't come until later. After you're really in a tour, you don't really always want to be there that early. But me, I was like, thank God I only had panties and a bra, and they made sure that it was on the tour, because sometimes at sound check, if it ran really late, I'd literally be doing sound check with the girls and the time guys and have no time to, I mean, Morris came later. The time and all of us stayed most of the night until they could leave after, and then Prince's band would come on. But yeah, it would run right into those long, my hours were very long, longer than anybody's.
Yep.
I was like around the buffet.
All right, I have 2 more people to introduce, then we're going to jump into the album. Aloy, welcome.
Hi, I wasn't actually expecting to be introduced. I was coming just to experience all of this beautiful love that I'm seeing here between friends. I'm not part of the group. So
I'm not either.
I'm just basking in it at this point. I can just tell that there's such a strong connection between you guys. It's like, oh, it makes me think of my like best friends. I mean, I'm going to call them tomorrow
nice.
Now. With me, you know, Jill is for me the shining moment in Purple Rain. And I don't know if Jill has seen. I I have a YouTube channel called Prince's Friend.
You do. I
Yes.
watched you on YouTube.
So-
you little YouTube
Hey,
star.
star is a little hard. That's a little much. But when I did my review, I was like, you know, people are doing the best that they can with what they have in terms of acting, but like, you know, Jill, you know, knocked it out of the park, could cry on command, like made you feel things. And I was like, she's the star of this movie. You wouldn't know, but it took me like many, many years to realize that that Jill from Graffiti Bridge was the blonde girl in
I know. I
Purple
probably
Rain.
shouldn't have dyed my hair, but unfortunately, I would have been bald if I hadn't. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm a black woman with black hair. It's like, damn, that bleach was like eating into my roots. And I would have been wearing a wig. And today I'd have no hair because that was a big problem. You know, and Prince really liked it really white. And, you know, I was like, I can get it to yellow. When we push it to white, that's like the territory where you're driving in the car and all your friends are like, and the windows down, hair flying out.
Yeah. I thought it looked good, but honestly, with that different color hair, it made you look like almost an entirely different person.
Right.
Totally.
So like I couldn't even tell that you were the same person in those movies until I looked at the credits and I was like, wait, that was her? Same person?
Yeah.
You know, so that was a weird one for me. But I would say, well, first off, happy birthday, because I found out this was a birthday thing.
Is that your son? He's beautiful.
Yes, that is my son. He's like, wait, can I be on camera?
Of course.
Oh, yes. Hello.
He's supposed to be resting so he can go to bed, but you know.
Resting.
But you know what? I will say, like, I made a video. My first actually real interaction with you, Jill, was I made a video on my channel called Prince Was a Modern Day Sage, which is probably one of my very favorite videos I've made. And I sent it to you just on a whim. And I was just like, would you like watch this and tell me what you think of it? Because I
did I watch it?
You did. And you sent me a really awesome like tweet message back that said, like, I feel like you understood Prince more than a lot of other people did.
Now, what were you saying about him? Because I do watch your channel. That is that's very funny. And I did watch your stuff, A Sage. You
Specifically
were really
in that
kind. You were
video.
more spiritually, you tuned into some of his things. If I do,
Mhm.
it wasn't just like, I think because during the times that some of these were coming out, remember, everybody was trying to get to well, who did he mean? Who did he write this song for?
Yeah.
And I kind of like the aspect that I think you took it into, it had another different purpose.
Yeah.
On the bigger side of things, which was nice.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, there's different types of Prince friends out there. You know, for me, it's like, I've always been about the music. You know, I've always been about the music and how the music affected my life and, you know, that stuff. And obviously you being a very big part of that, and your cat.
She just walked across.
Yeah. My
Ashley.
baby Ashley.
She cannot not have any attention.
She's everything. That's my favorite girl.
But honestly, like ever since I, you know, started my channel and stuff, I've reviewed your album. I reviewed I Miss You when it came out.
Yeah, I liked your
you know,
review of my album.
When you do interviews, I talk about it. So like anything I still have to review your new song. But you know, I sent you a note on Twitter. I was like, hey, I really like the new song and I'm going to review it soon. I just haven't.
Yeah. I know. I'm thinking I'll add on to that with some other songs. So I just have to get up the gumption to do it.
All right, well, we'll do some songs.
Song.
Yeah. But I met Jeremy many years ago doing listening parties and stuff, and we both live in Tampa. So
I mean, Jeremy and I have written songs together, and he's a great songwriter. You know, each time I want to cover his song for around Christmas time, and Christmas always comes and goes, and I never get it done. But I might have to start recording it now, so it's ready by Christmas. It's one of my favorite songs. It is.
Jill, just so you know, these conferences aren't to be nice to Jeremy.
Oh,
okay. Definitely. Gotcha.
All right. So we have one more person to introduce. Deja.
Oh yeah, it's Deja. It's okay.
Deja, hey.
Oh,
All right, hold on. Let me try to turn on the camera for this. It's a little. I'm in my parents' house, so I didn't want to show how messy it was. But
Oh,
yeah. Hold on. I'll turn the camera on. I'll just turn the camera on. Hold on 1 second. Oh my goodness, it's not letting me. But my story's gonna be. I didn't expect to be introduced either. My story's kind of short.
That was really short.
that was really
really
short.
you went back on mute, my friend.
You might have lost Deja.
She's so cute.
I know.
Yes.
I don't know her.
I'm like,
so-
what she know about Jill Jones? She
I
looks like
know.
she's 50.
It's like she's
I
a
love it.
baby. So
I
She's
love
super
it.
cool, actually. She's followed my channel for a while,
Oh.
so like I think she might have seen that I was coming to the party, and I think other
Oh.
people might have
Okay.
came. And Deja's awesome, though. She's great.
She's pretty child, pretty
looks
young
like you're-
woman. Sorry.
It looks like you're back. Would you like to finish your story?
Nope.
Okay. Going once, going twice.
I'll speak for her. She's awesome, and
Okay.
she loves the
is.
music
There you
and all that stuff.
I'm really floored. She's so young. I'm
She's
really
still on
floored.
mute.
All right. Well, there's one last person to tell their Jill Jones story, and I guess it's going to be me. So, when I have my little props ready. When I was a kid, I went to Leader Drug Store in 1984, and I bought this book, Prince.
Oh, Steve Ivory.
And there's
I
this
knew
picture.
Steve.
There was this picture in there. I'm like, who's that? I saw Jill Jones. So then I bought all the records, and I'm like a liner notes geek. So whatever there was a certain kind of sound that would be in songs. And in the liner notes, it was always JJ that either wrote or sang on those songs.
Yep.
And it was so mysterious because you didn't know that JJ was Jill Jones, but you were credited for writing Next Time Wipe the Lipstick Off Your Collar on
Right.
Sheila E's album. You sang on
Right.
Bella St. Mark.
Mhm.
Yep.
You sang on Ushishi Wawa. You sang
Yep.
on everything, but these were the things you were credited on.
Yeah.
And you just brought this power to the music that was yours. Like you brought this power. And then I got
Chihuahua. I love singing that in the studio. It was so much fun.
we needed to come back.
Yeah.
And then I became a Tina Marie fan. I'm like, is this Jill Jones on these Tina Marie albums, the same Jill Jones? And sure enough, it was. And then I bought this book in 1989, Prince: A Pop Life. And there was a whole section on Jill Jones's album and how that was the most important album to come out of Paisley Park.
Really?
Yes, it
Who
was.
wrote that
Yes, it
book?
was.
So this was written by Dave Hill in 1989.
Oh, wow.
So let me look for this quote here. There's a quote I wanted to read. Okay, so there's a whole 2 pages about your album. And at this point,
Oh, wow.
that's how I learned about your album. The final line is, Jill Jones is arguably Prince's most complete and engaging female counterpoint. Why? Like Wendy and Lisa, she might even go on to sustain her artistic life independently from him. Imagine that.
Wow. I sustained it. I don't know how great, but not like Wendy and Lisa were able to, put some coins in their pockets. But they also took my guitar player, Chris Bruce. I was so sick of those bitches. I was like, God damn it!
So,
I met Chris Bruce, brought him out to LA. We met through a friend of mine from Australia. Then Chris lived with me. And then around town, somebody hooked him up with them. And I was like, God damn it. But I love Chris. He texted me on my birthday. We still adore each other. But yeah, it was like, I had enough. That day was not a good day. I was like, they're always in my shit, taking my shit. But then I also was like, Chris, you're like my brother. You need to make some money. We were like so poor. We were eating guava pies in Silver Lake every day to the point where, because, I was holding out with Prince. I hadn't gotten another advance. He was trying to, Chris and I were writing music, and Prince was like thinking I was going to goth. And I was like, we're fine. So we were like I had a French boyfriend who was running down the hill all the time to get something from the tropical store. And anyway, they had guava pies. And there was just one damn day that Chris and I looked over at each other in the morning and we were like, I can't eat another guava pie. Can you? I can't eat another guava pie. It was, yeah. So then he like broke out. It was like working with Wendy and Lisa, Carla, and all that. I was like,
those songs are so good that you guys did though. The like Deep Kiss and
we had Red. We had a lot of songs like
Red was so good.
We did the first Flesh and Blood, which you know, because all of it is on like a 4-track, and then I had a fire in my house. A lot of it went missing, but Prince, if he kept it or he threw it out, he obviously kept Flesh and Blood because he did a version and later, and he liked that one because I had the Napoleon and Josephine reference, and it was like he loved it and he kept that. But yeah, some of the other stuff, because he was not understanding my love affair with 4AD Records. He just did not understand. Of course, the Cocteau Twins, of course, but he did not understand, you know, some of the darker tunes that I wanted to do.
I still think that, you know what I'm going to say, I've said it to you so many times, Deep Kiss, Unattainable Love, White Dogs, Tang.
I love those songs.
And White Dogs came from my house burning down.
Yeah,
that was,
But it does deserve a release, you know, even as a historical thing.
On Bandcamp.
It would be great. I mean, I could release those, I think, because they're mine. I mean, they have nothing to do with them, I think.
Yeah,
put them out.
Is that you telling us we're good?
Everybody sent me like, I was like, shh.
I will admit,
you know,
back in the day, I paid $100 on eBay for those demos.
No shit.
On a CDR,
really?
Yep.
Was it that Jill Jones? Yeah, I paid for one too. That had like, it had
Emotions. It was
Boom
called.
Boom. Yeah, it had Boom Boom. It had all the other stuff. The stuff with
well, I'm going to admit to something here. I got a copy of those songs because a girlfriend at the time, funnily enough, her friend went down to London to do an apprenticeship at a recording studio, and it was Eosis where they were recording.
Yes, it was.
So I got a copy of the tape, and it went out to select people, and I think that's where all the eBay scamming came from. I never sold copies of it.
Interesting. No, that's so interesting. Yeah.
It was. I gave copies of it to people that had helped me out with the website. I mean, there was a guy that translated a lot of your foreign TV interviews from Belgian into English, you know, that sort of
yes,
so,
exactly.
You know, so I said, well, here, take this, but don't let anyone else have it. And I don't know where it came from, but it must have come from there, you know.
Totally, because that's the studio we did it at. And I mean, I remember that.
And I saw one of the ones on eBay once, and it was even an image that I'd created for the website. I made screensavers, I think, if I'm right. And you could
yes.
Yeah, and one of them was just a picture from the screensaver. And I was like, oh my God. And I think I reported it. I got in touch with David Honnell, actually, because it was around about the time that 2 came out. And I said, look, I really don't want you thinking this is anything to do with me, because there's no way I would try and make money off you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I didn't even, I kind of grudged giving people them, because to me it was like mine. You know, but then if I hadn't, other people like Jeremy and other people might not have heard that, because I do believe
I'm kind of glad they went out in a way.
So good.
It's kind of good that it did, because nobody would have known anything that I was working on.
I mean, Deep Kiss is stunning, and long time and Unattainable Love. They are just up there.
Yeah, those guys who played on that were really great. You know, it was a great time to be in London, because it was, you know, I realized a lot of my things happen when I had some really bad heartache or something going on, and I was always processing. So, because that was like, I was being managed by Roger Davies at the time. And so Roger, of course, managed Tina Turner. So let's just put it this way. If Roger Davies if your label won't work with fucking Roger Davies, then it's a personal situation.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was personal about getting me off of the label. And even he was like, there's nothing I can do. Like, there's nothing we can do. This person will not let you go. Very simple. And that was that.
I was always surprised when you do me with
Ruichi.
Right. Yeah, I can never say his name right. You know, right? So I remember and on the album it said you actually got credit as Jill Jones appears courtesy of Paisley Park Records.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, you know, and knowing the situation, that it was like a slap in the face, you know, because he wouldn't let you do that music. You bring your own stuff out, and that was what 5-6 years down the line or whatever. It was like, oh my God.
Totally. It was like, and he wasn't, you know, he wasn't picking up my option. Like, the option was getting picked up, but as it dwindles down based upon your sales, you get no money. So for like the year, like you're sitting there like going, I'm freaking broke and I can't make money singing. I couldn't even go and sing in a nightclub because it would all go to Paisley Park. I mean, it's like, I couldn't even do freaking karaoke. So it was really, really, you know, there was a lot of bitter years about that because I never understood that. And how Ruichi's people did it, that was because he had a really great manager who, God rest his soul, Aki, who passed away shortly after or before we worked together, but he kind of sealed the deal. But I don't know what they did on their end to make that happen. And more than likely it was, you know, they bought me basically for that, you know, and gave the money to Paisley Park. I mean, that's really the only thing I can say that happened. But he did it. And because Ruichi and I loved Ruichi's music so much. I think he's one of the most of anybody I've ever worked with. I have so much gratitude about working with such a legitimate, artistic, creative individual. I mean, even for me, beyond Prince, because I knew Prince, like, so of course there are other people that come along that you just see things in their craft and go, wow, this is crazy. Or when Ruichi, we all went over to Herbie Hancock's house and did a recording there. And to see those masters working was quite spectacular. You always need to see everything else going on in the rooms and what other people do. It was incredibly, not to take anything away from Prince, but it was just a different connection.
Yeah.
Well, it was 1991. I was at Record Theater I was at Record Theater in Buffalo, and I still hadn't found the Jill Jones album, and I found it, and that's the CD I have right here.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Buffalo in 96, I just remember listening to that album so much. And I got to hear that voice that was always in the background finally come to the front. And it, you know, we're going to start talking about the album in a minute, but just the wildness of the album. It's just so much more unleashed than anything else that came out of Paisley Park. And I just loved it. So then, you know, my story is I kind of gave away all the stuff I own and backpacked around the country and was kind of a free spirit hippie. I moved to Florida in 98. I suffered a lot of trauma and heartbreak in 2001. And that's when I discovered Jill's second album too. And, you know, I've told the story many times, but I was so moved by the depth of that album that I called into work and just sat in my bed and cried for 2 days.
I'm not laughing because of that.
No, it's very dramatic.
You wrote a really heartfelt review about that, and I totally was like, oh my God, wow.
So David Hano read my review, and he said, you and Jill need to be friends. He sent me an email.
That's Dave.
So he connected us in 2004, and we met on your lunch break in New York City at a Starbucks.
I know. You have pictures of that.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of a friendship that's, you know, we've had many adventures through the years. And
that's true.
Even if we don't talk for 3 years, it's like a day hasn't passed.
You came to the wedding. Yep. You know, I have your bottles that you gave me. I still have those. Yes.
So Seth, you may have flown on Spirit Airlines with Jill, but I hung out with her in a Red Roof Inn.
All right. Look, I'm going to tell the story about how me and Jill met, and that's going to blow people's minds.
Oh, go ahead and tell the story before we get into the album.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you how we met. Back probably 10 years ago, I was a partner with somebody who was producing, a girl from Minneapolis who was trying to produce some television shows. One of the television shows, or one of the ideas, which was my idea, was we did a sizzle. We filmed a sizzle and everything that nobody's ever seen. It was a show called Diamonds.
Oh.
And
I remember
this one.
The whole premise of the show was that I was working with these women that I admired that were proteges from these famous men. So we had Jill, there was Kat Glover, Sue Ann Carwell. From
I love Sue Ann.
Parkheads. Maxie and Sherry from the Mary Jane Girls. And originally Miss Chalet.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all going to be a cast together. And me and Jill, I don't know if I messaged you like through Facebook or something. But
yeah, maybe.
I think I like contacted Jill through Facebook. And I was like, hey, we have some people in common, like Chris Bruce. And do you want to do this show? And, she said, sure. And let me tell you something without giving away all the dirt. But let me tell you something. Me and Jill connected in a way that it was like we were the bullshit police and we were calling out the bullshit. Okay.
I know.
And I can't tell all the stories.
Mm-hmm.
But me and this lady here, it was an instant connection.
I was like looking at him across these shots like, what?
Okay, and I was looking at her like, girl, and it was that was it.
No,
it was crazy.
And we became the best
close.
of friends from that point. So, I mean, Diamonds never saw the light of day.
No.
But there was.
It was too rare.
It was very rare. And could you have imagined, I mean, with everything that ended up happening over the next 5 or 6 years after we filmed that, could you imagine if we had done that like through Prince's death?
Oh, he would have never let us up to his show. No. That's for damn sure.
That show probably would have never happened.
Show, Vanity's thing. Oh, hell no.
He was like, oh no. Oh, and Vanity, and we talked to Vanity. Vanity was going to be a possible cast member.
True. That's so true.
So, it was going to be, it would have been a rare gem. Hilarious. Just to say.
Yeah.
But what I can say was from that, I met this woman and she became my sister and we will be friends forever for life.
Sure.
That's all I have to say about that.
Seth, didn't you meet Jill out in Minneapolis because Jill, you sang in Ohio, but then you sang out in Minneapolis a couple weeks later, didn't you? Back in that year? I feel like
Seth and I flew together.
We flew together.
Seth,
we were together.
Seth got the tickets and then we were a minute late on Spirit Air. And had to get another ticket. A minute.
Sure
a minute late. I swear to God, we were standing in line while we were a minute late. Right. Okay. And they wouldn't honor it. They were like,
oh my gosh.
And then we were like, what? So we went through,
Because I had serious FOMO. I was going to go to that.
And we, I'm not going to push it out there, but what I will say, look, Jill, we'll probably talk about this on the podcast, but me and Jill missed a monumentous something where we might have been in jail.
Yes, totally.
Okay, thank God. So I'll just leave that there. But yes, we were together and we flew to Minneapolis 2017 together.
Yeah, and I think Prince made us miss that plane because he knew that with me and the stew, that was not going to fare too well.
It wouldn't have been cute. It'd have been real ugly.
Do I need to pause the recording for a moment?
It would have just been ugly. We'll just leave it there.
We'll leave it at that.
We got there and met up with our family. And we went to Prince's brother Omar was having an event the night after. So me and Jill and Susan,
Brenda was out there,
Apollonia,
right?
Yep, we all went together.
She was, yeah.
Yep, I did Jill's makeup that night. We roomed out in Minneapolis. And we went to First Avenue the next day and walked around downtown Minneapolis. And you know, it was unbelievable. It was surreal. It was a surreal experience. Surreal. Yeah. And then we had just did I Miss You. We had just did I Miss You. And you know, when she played me the song, and we talked about this, the first time I heard the song, I burst out in tears. And I called her and she said, I want to do a video. I said, okay. I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, I'm not sure. She said, think up something that you might want to do. And I called her and I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we pay homage to all the different eras?
That was his idea.
I loved it.
Yeah, totally. I was like, yes.
You Do Me. It. And she was like, let's do it. And
except I said, I can't get my fat ass in that Azadine Alaya dress anymore.
And I'm not dyeing my hair blonde.
I wear a wig.
Look, we got a wig. We went downtown and got us a wig.
We did.
And you know, it was just, I think that video is so special to me because we shot that whole thing in 7 hours.
We did.
And when I say it was just me and her, we did all the hair, we did all the makeup, we did all the setups, we did everything. And Jill will tell you, you know, that there was a little orb that was following.
Lots of orb. Yes. It was so weird. Day. Yeah.
And she said, Seth, she said, I have an envelope that has love letters from Prince. And I told her, I said, bring them, because that's going to be the foundation of this whole thing. And every tear that you saw in I Miss You was 100% real. And you know, it was an emotional shoot. But I remember when we were doing the Mia Boca section and they really started coming, and I remember whispering, I just said, sing through it, sing through it, sing through it. And she sang through it. And everything that you see is real emotion. So, you know.
It all hit. The weight of it kind of hit. And I don't know if it was all of that atmosphere. It was really, that was really intense.
I love that song because it was not exploitative at all. It was just so sincere.
No.
There's a lot of things that were coming out at the time just didn't feel good all the time.
Right.
And that felt really good. Like the video felt good. The song felt good. When you sang it live in Ohio, and it just felt good. So
we did it. It was purely out of love. That was something that, look, we didn't have a budget. We didn't have nothing. We just said we're going to do it. And that's what we did.
So if there's a theme to all these origin stories and all these anecdotes, it seems to be that more so than being a talented artist and a talented performer, it's just that, Jill, that you're just not full of shit.
Yeah.
You know
Hell no.
You can say a lot of things about Jill, but her being full of shit is not one of them.
Nope.
She's going to tell it like it is.
That's the common denominator right there.
And that sincerity comes out in the music, though. That's the thing. And, you know, I want to say when I met Jill in 2005, your artistic life with Prince was so far removed from who you were at the time and what you were doing. I don't even think we hardly ever even talked about Prince. It just didn't. It wasn't important. There's so much more to you and what you've done. And I just, you know, I want everyone that's watching this to realize, like, you are your own legacy. You really are. And you did great stuff with Prince, but the stuff you've done on your own is just as good, if not better sometimes. So. Yeah,
I mean, I wished he could have just lived longer so he could have just hung out in my day for a while.
Right.
In the world of, like, things that I like to do. Because he would have gotten to see things, or, you know, hell, I'm convinced I would have had him planting some organic fruits and vegetables. I know Tasha tried, but I would have gotten that, and a couple horses up at Paisley. But no, it's like, no, I just would have wanted, you know, I know music is, it's a real gift to have it, but you have to have a life. I mean, having a child, I think, kept me from a lot of the other stuff of like, some people really want to be famous and they really want it, but I've never been that person. You'll never walk into my house and be like, that bitch wants to be famous. I'm not, that's not it. I don't think it was. And maybe that's why I didn't motivate enough to get all that happening, because everybody likes everybody to be on the same page, the same board. But I was okay with our family and the Paisley thing when we were all kind of doing stuff. It felt good to be in collaborative mode. And anyone who knows me knows I actually thrive better in groups or collaborations. I do very well with them. I don't think I like doing things together, like he would say, let's put on a show or let's do this. I like that. For me to initiate all the time, I'm a little bit of a procrastinator, sometimes kind of lazy. I also met a lot of famous people my whole life growing up that didn't seem happy. So it's like that, maybe that kind of dampened the sparks a little. Ashley, stop. Like scratching up my chair. So yeah, maybe that dampens it a little bit, but if work is good, or, you know, having fun and a good laugh, that's for me, that's okay. I don't even know what I was saying anymore. Must be that gin I was drinking.
Yes, girl. Yes.
So it was 1987, and the first of 4 epic albums. And Jill, we're gonna talk about all 4 of those albums throughout the years, because they're all equally good, and I've given all of them equal airtime. But this was the one that started it all.
Yes.
So let's all talk about the album cover before we get into the music. What do you remember about the day you shot the cover?
Isabel Snyder came to my apartment, and she had these 2 German guys in the back with her. And we just started walking along the street. I lived over near the United Nations. I had an apartment, a beautiful apartment. It was a penthouse apartment, gorgeous. And I mean, it was kind of like a little bit of an ivory tower, because it was so off the beaten path of like being downtown, you know, the hip side of, you know, it's the 80s, for goodness sake. But Prince sort of wanted, like, the premise was I was going to New York to learn how to toughen up. And I went to New York, and then he sent Gwen Leeds to come and help me find an apartment. But Gwen was like taking me on the Upper East Side and all this other stuff. I was like, okay, well, then it was like, it was his apartment, but you can live there. And then it ended up being, this is your apartment. But he got to pick it. That was really, and it was really great. I mean, it was, you know, one of my neighbors was Fabio. And we became good friends. I have some funny stories about all that. And some United Nations people, diplomats and stuff. But so Isabel came and we met up, and we had done a photo shoot before this album cover, before that one. And they were very glam, the pictures, but she wanted to do something very impromptu. And I had the vintage jacket and the vintage dress, and I loved wearing my boots all the time, and I was just walking my dogs, and that was what she got. She knew the glam things were the glam things, but she wanted another side of this, and that was really it. And we were walking over near the library in New York on 5th Avenue, and I think that manhole was right a little bit to the right of the building.
I feel like it captures the album, just the free-spirited, carefree. I mean, you know you're getting into something different here, because a lot of the other Prince Protégé album covers were very scripted. You know, Vanity and Susan and Brenda weren't just chilling in the bedroom in their lingerie. Right. You know, Sheila E. wasn't hanging out in
diamonds and furs.
Yeah. You know what I always thought? actually, when I first saw the album cover, and this is because I had been a fan since 1999. When I first saw the album cover, the first thing I thought was 7-Year Itch, Marilyn Monroe. That's the first thing I thought.
It's funny, and that just happened. It really, we were not even planning it. That was what was so weird.
It was so crazy because for me, I always, I think many fans always felt that you were his Marilyn. So when I saw that album cover, it made sense to me. I was like, well, this makes sense.
It was weird because we were also beating the traffic. We were running out on the street when there was no traffic, like because it was a one-way street, and we were like doing this and having fun. And that was really interesting. And I was just goofing off. And it's funny, out of all the pictures, that was the one that the Warner Brothers woman that Prince got along so well with, that was the one that stood out the most to her for the cover. And he called and said, do you like this? I mean, he obviously had gotten it before me. And then they sent, everything was by mail then, or fax. Right. He's like, do you like this? And I was a little bit like, no glam shot? Like, you don't like the other ones? And he's like, everybody, every girl. It's funny, I had a lot of women who were rallying for that picture. I think they were not wanting to see the lingerie. And also, if I was very tied up and buttoned up in that whole thing, in the whole photo shoots, period. And it's also because my photographer was this incredible woman with this German aesthetic, it was and I picked her because I saw her work and I really loved her strong pictures. And it wasn't like a lot of the cheesy Rebecca Blake bullshit and all that other tits and ass. And, it was a little too farcical for me. Rebecca Blake stuff with the, looked like you were at a fucking Caligula orgy and shit. No, I wasn't down for that. I was like, goats heads and stuff. No, I wasn't going to do that. And she was weird. She was just kind of creepy to me. The big eyes. And there was something I didn't vibe with her at all. Even when she was doing Prince's stuff, because they sent me to meet with her. Didn't vibe with her.
I feel like it's a good photo because there's like implied tension there. Because you're standing there, you're kind of straddling kind of the manhole, like one foot on either side, the manhole, but you're holding your skirt. Like I am in control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's an implied sexiness and control there, and it's actually pretty awesome. Yeah. So I can understand why people would be like, no, that's the picture. That's the one you want to use.
Yeah.
There's the seriousness to that picture. I know on the flip side, there's the one when the dogs are trying to get away and you're laughing, totally flips it. I love the two of them, actually. I love the two images.
Yeah, Cuckoo and Gertie.
Aww. And I do like that, it has the purple hue, so it's on brand with the Prince universe. But it just does portray a certain kind of independence and confidence that I don't know if any other person coming out of maybe Morris Day, but who else from the Prince camp really stood with that kind of independent stance. So it just was really its own thing and so cool.
I also think it gave it you're right, because there was something very passive maybe about the other album covers on a sense from the women. And that one was a bit stronger. I mean, I was taking classes at NYU. I was trying to become a sculptor, an artist. There was an experience simultaneously happening, a coming of age, if you will, of me living in New York all by myself. This wasn't Loring Park. This wasn't Minneapolis. It wasn't LA. And it sort of gave me a different kind of sheen.
Yeah.
Because, it did take a bit to take in New York City on your own as a young girl.
Jeremy, let's go to New York and recreate that like people do.
I'm going to. I'm gonna have my skirt fly up. Everyone wants to see that. Hey, another thing that really stood out before the album, when you read the liner notes, Prince used a lot of pseudonyms, but in the liner notes, he credited himself. So the songs were written by Jill Jones and Prince.
Right.
I read somewhere in that book, there's a whole section about how Jill Jones was the one independent woman. And I believe it quoted you as saying, like, I have nothing to hide. He collaborated with me and I'm secure in my own contributions. Does that sound like a real quote from back then? Or
Yeah, no, it does sound like him. I mean, considering he was off doing Under the Cherry Moon for most of it, or at different parts through the years, like with Mia Boca, we started that in 1982, 83.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like, so there was a little bit of it that had already been worked on, but then in the middle when David Z got involved and we went to Electric Ladyland, you know, it was really David Z who held it down and made it all come together. And we would just fly stuff back and forth to Prince, back and forth in France. And then they had like some camera crews come in and film me doing stuff. And then they'd send that to him and all this other stuff. So it was a really interesting process, but it had been very, very long. Violet Blue came very late in the game because he was engaged. And did I write everything on that record? No, not really. I mean, there were things in my journals and things. I would send him lyrics. Then he would send something back. But some of it with Mia Boca, we were actually together. And Seth, it was an Italian restaurant that Prince and I called in the Purple House at nighttime. We called it, me and him. And the reason my grammar in Italian was so bad is because we had Mexican workers answering our questions. They weren't Italian. And I got grilled so hard in Italy for that because everybody in Italy, your grammar is really terrible. I was always like, God damn, I'm not like, okay, all right. Sorry, Lord. I was always like, because I had my verbs wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, do you want my mouth? It was like, do my mouth you want? Or something really weird. Like if you break it down. Yeah. So, but it wouldn't fit any other way singing it. So
right.
Yeah, no, that was interesting. Violet Blue came a lot later after the Cherry Moon. It was like the last song, icing on the cake. And then when I think Bin Laden, no, not Bin Laden. I know this sounds crazy. Gaddafi, when there was something that happened whenever we bombed him or something. He flew back, and I remember driving around listening to Sounds Strange in the car, listening to the music because he had landed in JFK, and then he drove into the city, and then I ran down and jumped in the limo, and we just drove around listening to music, and then he went back to the airport. So shit like that happened with him, or, you know, but yeah, if he did stuff in the studio, it would have been at another studio. We'd send the tapes, and then he would send it back.
So the album was many years in the making then? 3 or 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
In Dwayne Tudall's book, they talk a lot about lots of quotes from you, which, I mean, stuff I didn't even know. And I thought, you know, I'm this Prince fan that knows everything.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of interesting stuff. But I mean, definitely some of the origins and some of the order, the way the songs were recorded and things like that. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's like the record just had to get done.
But that book also shows your contributions to so many of the other people and his music and just in general, which totally gets, you know, really put underneath. And it's great that people now are learning that.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty amazed that people are even curious to put some of those pieces of the puzzle together, because it's like if he gave, like later on when he gave Too Rough to that one girl and she didn't really want to sing it, and then he's like, do you want to sing it? It was kind of interesting, and I sang it, and I was like, okay, I'll do Too Rough, because I really had no choice at those times. I had tried to hold out as long as I could to do the album that I really wanted to do with him, but I always wanted him to give 100% on it. But then when he did, it's like, we did For Lust for the second record, and that was going to be amazing. But it always seemed like there was something else that came along that always would take priority, or, you know, another girl or another whatever, and or something weird like that, or we would have a fight and then I'd move away, and, you know, or I'd get a boyfriend or something, just some real dumb stuff that really got in the way of us both making a lot of freaking money, for maybe me, but even to just be able to reasonably sit with each other and kind of take a breather. Everything was always at high octane levels, you know. And, you know, I think when he started dating Kim Basinger in that kind of era is when it got a little weird, because I'd seen so many of these women coming and going that it felt a little uncomfortable and a little disingenuous. Like at this point, it was like, hi, Kim likes you a lot and she wants you in this movie. And I'm like, really? I don't even know her. I met her once. You know, it's like, and that was just strange, because then you're like, oh, boy, I stayed too long at this fair.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the album was definitely a long time in the making.
Because wasn't it originally, and this is I don't know if me and you maybe have talked about this, but originally wasn't this supposed to come out kind of like in the crop of the Purple Rain albums, like the Apollonia 6, Ice Cream Castles, Jill Jones? They were all supposed to come out at the same time to kind of feed off of the popularity of the film, correct?
Yes, but we had a major blowout between us right around the Ice Cream Castles thing. And he went on tour for Purple Rain. And it took us a lot to get back on the same page. And that was just by, I don't know what, but that was a big derailment. You know, that one was probably the big thing.
I think if it had come out around about that time, it would have been so much less of an album, though, because you wouldn't have had like the Claire Fisher involvement and things, and it wouldn't have been so much brass, you know. I think the time was just right when it came out, you know, like I said earlier.
Yeah, you're probably right, because I mean, had he not given Sugar Walls to Sheila or Sheena or whatever, maybe those things. I know Steve Farnolli was a little perplexed with some things that he was giving away. Because Steve loved Nothing Compares to You and just saved that up. When he went, he kept that close to his vest and just took that straight away to Sinead, you know, because sometimes Prince's marketing ideas and choices, you know, Steve would have rather Prince had done Nothing Compares to You for himself, you know. So there were little things like when I first started and we did Boom Boom, that was the first song we ever recorded in 1982.
Wow.
And he wanted Steve and them were like, sign her now. Because they wanted a legitimate artist, like, you know, other than a fluffy whatever. And then it was too late because the tour was already, and then I just sort of got put onto that already. And then people get, familiarity breeds contempt, guys.
Yeah.
Because Sugar Walls was a Purple Rain, Jill Jones song. That was the character of Jill in Purple Rain. Sugar Walls was that. If that had come out in '84,
yeah, and for me, it was like no matter what he was doing to give it to Sheena Easton, there was still something so wrong about that whole relationship of the two of them, because I know he was just secretly trying to find his dig in to try to usurp Madonna, you know, like her fame and what she did. But here's the big difference. Madonna did it on her own, essentially, and rounded up all the creatures that participated for him. This is how Prince was like, and then he'll sit there and tell you that he didn't like her. Meanwhile, you'd see that he's trying to get her a song and all this stuff. He wasn't stupid, but he would say that stuff. And if you didn't know him, you could actually walk away believing he didn't like Madonna. No, he was amazed that a woman could actually pull that shit off.
Right.
So when he gave it to Sheena Easton, for me personally, I found it all so starchy. And it's not really my favorite, not my favorite. And I don't buy it one fucking bit. Not at all.
Mm-mm.
Not her sugar walls.
Well,
Saccharin maybe, but not sugar.
Whenever I think you should know,
I never liked that song anyway.
Right? Yeah.
Wait a second. Melissa actually doesn't like a song?
No, I never liked that song.
Wow.
It was a little vulgar. It did have a like my sugar walls. You know, I like the cadence of it and that it went into this hook. But yeah, there was something really like, I don't know. I don't know why the biggest songs he gave to white women. I just don't get it.
Yeah, she was the morning train girl. She was the morning train girl. She wasn't the Sugar Walls girl. So when she sang it, even in the video, she looked uncomfortable.
That totally.
So it just didn't, it wasn't for her.
Remember when Jewel made her dance album? That's what Sugar Walls feels like to me.
I remember when Sheena brought out an album, the Lover and Me album. And she did this great big homecoming gig back in Glasgow Green in Scotland. And she came out on stage and goes, "Hey, everybody." Sorry, my American accent. It's so nice to be back home in Scotland. And then she got bottled off the stage and were throwing bottles of piss at her.
Oh,
oh my God, really?
She said she would never perform live in Scotland again after that. I mean, I don't mind her music. You know, it's
I like her music. Her music is fine.
Yeah, for your eyes only.
For your eyes only. Amazing.
Right.
But I just felt like somebody had a gun behind the video when she was doing Sugar Walls. Like, making her sing it.
Look, the musicians didn't even know how to hit the keyboards right and shit. You know, just saying.
Funny, I just watched that video a couple of weeks ago.
It makes me uncomfortable. Yeah.
And that yellow blouse.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're almost 2 hours in, and we haven't even started talking about track one.
Oh my gosh!
All right.
I think I'm gonna get to song 2. By the way, and I'm gonna have to turn in because
it's 4 o'clock you have to. Definitely. Stop it, Ashley.
Does anyone have any thoughts of want to share their first time they heard the Jill Jones album, or any thoughts about the cover before we move on to track 1?
Well, I found it interesting that he, I forgot his name. I'm sorry. Was saying that it didn't sound like it fit into an error, because when I first heard it, I said, "Oh, that sounds like it came from the '80s." To me, I could hear the '80s.
That,
What's that?
I think it was me that said that. I could, to me, though, from that sound, the Paisley Park sound from the 80s, I don't associate it with any Prince sort of sound, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm meant to say it's. I couldn't put it into an era. It kind of transcends.
I'm here. I'm just listening because I'm going to do something with Ashley. You guys,
right.
Okay?
I can hear it.
I think it just transcends the era. You know, I think it could come. It could be an album that could be produced nowadays, I think, as well. I think that's what I was meaning. But that's my ear. You know, everyone's got a different way of hearing.
But I felt like it had an 80s vibe to it, listening for the first time.
Well, the first time... Oh, go ahead, Melissa. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I know why now I didn't know about it, because in 87 I was graduating high school, so I had a lot of stuff going on. That's why I didn't know about it.
I feel like a lot of Prince's stuff kind of has a timeless quality to it, and like you can tell some of the instruments that are being used, or he used those around that time or whatever.
Drum.
But it's so funny if you listen to other things that were out in 1987. Like all of it sounds so 1987. This one is like it's vaguely 80s, but like it doesn't feel like it's bam 1987.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more lush.
When Jill said that Boom Boom was one of the first things they recorded together, I think that sounds absolutely dated compared to the stuff that came on the album. You know, I don't rate Boom Boom at all very great, to be honest. It's just a throwaway track. I like it, but it's not one of my favourite Jill songs, I have to say. And I find it incredible that that was recorded before like the likes of Mia Bocca and things, or Violet Blue, and you know, And it was years afterwards I heard it, Boom Boom, for the first time, right about the same time as Flesh and Blood and the other one that leaked. I can't remember.
Something About My Heart.
Moving you.
What was that?
Something about the beat of my heart or something, was it? Or
no, that was Boom Boom. Can you feel the beat of my heart? Flesh and Blood and I can't remember at all. But anyway, all three of those they sounded more dated than the first album.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, yeah. So
you know what some of my favorites were though, honestly, off the Jill. Well, in accordance with the Jill album, I loved the B-sides. Baby Cries, and 77 Bleecker Street were the jam.
When I was in New York City, I took a picture of myself under the address of 77 Bleecker Street because it's right by Mr. Black's.
Should have been on the album.
Yeah, that was a jam. So we're going to talk about
Bleecker Street. And Baby Cries, Ay Ay. They had an extended. They had a 12-inch version of Baby Cries, Ay Ay. That was sick.
Angie Stone.
It was sick.
And they played it in Ohio for that Interbelt thing. And I remember dancing with Danielle Vasquez to the extended mix of Baby Cries. And isn't there this whole talking section?
Yes. Yeah.
Ain't that late? And ain't that late?
Yeah. What does Jill say? Like, you think you're something, but you're not.
That was directly. I had an issue, right? Totally.
Ain't that
I remember Coke Johnson worked on that with us, and David, Angie's boyfriend, and then my friend, bass player, who Don Taylor. So yeah, we all had fun in there doing that.
I love that song.
Yeah, you say that I'm your girlfriend, treat me like you did when.
Keep going, please.
Our love was full of mystery. You know we got a history. I'm not locked up on your pillow. And like the wind, my love will blow. So, honey, watch my feelings. You best know who you're dealing. You know, over in New York, there were times that Angie and I would hook up, and I remember doing some sessions. She would try to turn me on to. This is when I was waiting out my contract, and jingles or whatever she would call. And we went to a crazy dinner with Mantronics. That'll have to all be in the book. It was funny. I mean, we had some funny times.
Wow.
So the original mix of Mia Boca, did it have the intro or was that added on later?
It was added on later, and that was a Claire Fisher thing. So if anything good came for his liaison or relationship with Susanna and Wendy and all of them, for me, was their introduction to him to Claire Fisher. Because I kind of lucked out. It sort of made me very iconic, you know, for my thing. And I know that their record has, you know, the family has its stuff, but I don't know. It was like a movie, and all of my pieces came together. I mean, I think my video was the most costing video. It cost more than even the Matthew Ralston video that he did for Ingrid.
Okay.
Because it got them on the good foot is what happened by using Mondino. I think for any of his proteges, like my video cost a ridiculous amount. But I also had Simon Fields from Limelight Production, and all these guys really, really liked me. And we all scouted for places down in Texas and in Mexico. We drove, and it was really fun. I mean, these are the things that Prince never really got to do with his own stuff.
Right.
But when a new artist, when you're doing those kind of things, they don't do that anymore. You don't go on those locations to these places that they're funny. I mean, it was just so much fun. And that creates new relationships with people, new everything. So Prince felt a little bit like a foreigner in my world, particularly once the shape of the visual for Mia Boca came to life.
And the video does feel a lot different than anything else, once again, coming out of the Prince world. It just had a class. I just feel like it just had some lushness and class.
It did.
That put it in a league of its own. So
He fell out. He loved it. He had no real input on any of that. The clothes with Azadine Alaya, nothing. I flew to Paris. Like Mondino was a lifesaver because he took me out of that, because Mondino had experienced working with Prince. And he also was very astute and observed all these different relationships with people. And a director, what people don't understand, can always see, they see more. A photographer and a director see more about you in the lens of a film than maybe an average person every day sees.
Yeah.
And we did a photo shoot before our video. And I remember I was giving him nothing on these photos. They're actually quite beautiful photos. It would have been nice to have used them, except Mondino was like, he was worried. He told a few people the day before the shoot, I don't know. She's just sitting there and she won't do anything. But as soon as, he was sweating like a pig trying to get a picture from me. And because it's very revealing. I also developed a really big crush on Jean-Baptiste Mondino. And you often do in your work environments creatively. It's so easy to do because you're all in like this little cocoon in this bubble. I mean, I had many crushes along the way. Because the baby is always the creation. Yeah. So you're all focused on it. And Prince and I had already gone through that with some of the songs because, like I said, Mia Boca was so early. To revisit that, it was kind of nice to revisit it with David Z. Mm-hmm. Because Prince and I had already revisited it to when he came and drove in and said, do you think we should put strings on it? Because the other songs, like If I Could Get Your Attention and Living Doll, those were all on, right? And we were listening, and I was like, these songs are like bad drug transfusions for me. I mean, they're like, they're not who I am anymore. They're not. I mean, I am a New Yorker, and New York girls I'm just not going to call myself a living doll. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not.
Did you get offered If I Could Get Your Attention then?
I sang it. I just really didn't like that song.
Oh, I actually like it. I would love to hear your vote.
I know a lot of people like it. And I just don't have any taste when it comes to picking singles. I got to tell you.
I think I heard Mighty. I think she did a version of it.
Oh God, he tried everybody on that song.
Yeah. Actually, I loved it on Tasha's album. I heard off her album.
I've only heard his version.
There was a radio show used to be here at the weekends.
I love the chorus, but I didn't like "Baby, I'm Getting Restless." I don't know what I couldn't think of any way to style, and I was like, these verses they feel a little throwaway to me. And if I don't believe anything I'm singing, it really kind of falls flat a little bit. Right. It's a little like, womp womp.
Oh, I'd love to hear you singing it though.
I feel like your vocal performances on all your albums are just so invested. Like you're so invested in what you're singing, and it really shines through. Any thoughts on Mia Boca before we move on to song 2?
Yeah, I like it. It's just the strings and everything. It's like a symphony.
Yeah,
playing underneath the whole song. You know, when it gets to the end, and the brass and everything, and it's just fantastic.
It's epic.
I wish it had actually been a recorded version with the spoken bits on it from the video as well, actually, because it just the whole version of it in the video is just fantastic, you know, and the world just ain't ready for you yet. You know, it's fantastic. It's brilliant, you know, but it's just the one thing I remember I took the CD into my work years ago and I played it. I was doing a night shift and someone picked up on the synth line that goes all the way through it, you know, that and he said, oh my God, that really gets into your head, right? Yeah. And I noticed something similar with Someone to Jump Up. That
I love that song too.
You know, and it was like a thematic tie, and I thought it kind of tied those two eras together. You know, there was another one on I Am that there was something similar happened that made me think. I can't remember what song it was for the life of me, but there was a synth thing running all the way through it as well. I thought that's clever because it burrows into your head, you know, and it does make you remember the rest of it. You know.
Yeah, it does. It's true.
All right, Clark, did you want to say something about Mia Boca before we move on?
I liked it.
And still do, right? All right, G Spot.
Me too.
Was G Spot? Was there a demo with Vanity on it, or am I imagining things?
No,
No,
there
okay.
wasn't. Mm-mm.
So that was always a Jill song from the beginning.
Yeah, it actually was. A lot. I know Jesse has said all this stuff, but you know what? No. And maybe Prince was going to try it out on her, but no,
Okay.
that wasn't happening. And he may have. I mean, he had Vibrator. G-Spot was around a similar time. He might have done. I mean, that's the only crazy thing about Prince. He'd say something to somebody, and then we have to always remember and keep it in context because, you know, even though we were on a plane talking about and looking at magazines where, because, you know, the French, like Oscar de la Renta and all these different designers were doing the whole corsets and all this other stuff. And then we'd always buy a bunch of magazines at the airports and just sit on the planes and look at all of them and read them. And G-Spot was one of the artists. Like, what's a G-Spot? And I mean, and he and I were incredibly fascinated with this G-Spot thing. You know, we were also incredibly fascinated with tantric yoga and books and things about it. And positions, and you had to try them all out. You know, I don't mean to be crude, but that was, I have found over the years in having to defend my little position on something, I've had to mention this was an actionable life that happened, and things arose out of actual experiences. So trust me, we were looking for that G-Spot. And he may have looked with other women about it, but I definitely initiated. I gotta find this.
And don't the lyrics?
I mean, I love the story of O. You know, that's like one in those days. I was a very, you know, I love those really trashy French Emmanuel movies, and I really was like, I loved it. That was right up my alley. That's how I kind of envisioned the album.
Literally, right?
Who I am, and with the synth being very like hokey, and I actually think it did manifest on a certain level.
The lyrics spell out finally, right? If you read out the letters,
he was proud of that, and he wrote it out just like finally. Like,
that whole.
Because it took a long ass time. I'm telling you, sorry.
So for the record, it was found. The G-Spot was found.
It was found, you know, but it was like finally for real.
I'm pouring more sangria. Jeffrey, were you gonna say something?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that like the way that the song is called G-Spot and then it spells out finally, like that whole style, it like has been hugely influential to my own writing. I just love that it's like it. You just don't reveal it necessarily. You have to just like a G-Spot. You have got to find it. You know, it's like I like that.
True.
It's such a genius.
It's so funny. You know who we during that time. I mean, you got to remember, kind of coming out of high school, essentially. So my taste level, you know, things could really arouse like, oh my God, did you read this? It's E.E. Cummings. And so the discovery of E.E. Cummings was very interesting because if anybody reads his stuff, he always has stuff like that. And it's always like these little metaphorical twists and turns with the words. And I'm not saying that Prince took anything from him, but I'm not saying that he didn't find different literature, different things as inspirational. Like, okay. Yeah.
It's just such a sexy song. Just the sax, the performance. It's not over the top. It's kind of restrained.
Demo, I tell you, his demo at the house, we were at the Purple House, and he sent Don Batts out to get a saxophone. Or did he? I'm pretty sure it was Don Batts because Sandy Scipione wouldn't have known, but they were boyfriend and girlfriend. So either way, the sax came back, and it was almost as big as he was because it was a baritone. I think the baritone one, and he's going beep, 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 beep. He heard it in his head, and he sat there punching all, and would call me down periodically to punch when it was too close for him to get in. It was all damn day that he did this. And I remember he had on black shorts and you don't call them that anymore. What you can't call these tank tops anymore. What I was going to call them.
A wife beater.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, whatever they're calling them now. He had one of those.
Oh, I didn't know that you can't call them that.
Yeah, it's got a new name. And so he was just sitting there, and he wasn't in the actual chair of the recording console chair because of the way he had to sit holding it in between his legs and, sitting there and going, vroom, vroom. And I would be upstairs making tea, and I could hear him hitting all these wrong notes and because he hadn't played it before. He literally taught himself that. So then later, I think when Alan Leeds came along, they kind of cleaned everything up. But I love that original because it just showed he wouldn't stop until he got it done. Like, he would not stop. And I really almost like the simpler version better. I always liked what he did when it was him, and it was really so simple because the nucleus was there. Sometimes, when everybody was such a musician coming in and they were so muso, it became a little bit a lot.
I lost the charm, I feel like.
And that was the charm, like with the girls who everyone's like, oh, well, she wasn't a singer or she couldn't sing or, Personally, I do not like people singing the hell all over a record.
Me neither.
Personally will turn the shit off because I do not like hooping and hollering. And even when I was screaming on some of the songs, some of them I thought it was a little much. That was his choice preference, like on All Day, All Night. There were some things I would have been like, but I'm talking like, I like it when it's really tasteful because I don't have that I like. So I love like when Vanity or those girls, because he created stylists. He made women stylists, singers.
He created a mood as well.
Yeah, because when Vanity went on and she created that song, Samuel, it's one of my favorites.
Oh, I love that song.
I love the song. I think it's so beautiful.
So dark.
And, and it was like that. Yeah, it is very dark. But those were all lessons from previous lessons that then moved into, how people hear the melodies. And I think people sing their own soul, their own melody, and their own spirit.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on G-Spot before we move on to track 3?
Just like to imagine a world where all these songs were hits and like how the world would be different if like everybody like in 1987 was singing G-Spot.
I know.
I mean, at that time, there's a lot of good stuff out there, but like, whereas now there's like nothing good out or very little good out there.
Yeah.
I know.
But it just like the world would, if the estate probably would shut it down to try and write like fan fiction where like.
That's true. I also think there's something about humor. What kills me the most is about music. Some of it today, they're actually serious. There's no real tongue in cheek. They're like, then that's where the line of vulgarity goes too far. I think that even when Vanity and all of us were doing Vibrator, I was another woman in the shopkeeper. That was me talking again. But I think that what really made it a little bit, always makes it better is when you have a little humor with things. Doesn't always have to be like G-Spot. I'm looking for, it was like, that's too much.
What do you mean you need batteries?
Right. Yes.
That'd be like a USB port.
Yeah. And then they like turned on this like lawnmower. It was just the funniest vibrator. It was just like, oh my God. And that was Vanity had a bad back. So she had a massager that she used for her back.
Body massager.
Yeah. And I don't know what happened down in the studio because I went upstairs. Okay. But the reason we all died laughing so hard is because when you turn it on, it was literally like a machine. Like, it was just, you had to laugh.
You know what I love about that song is the bass line's like so rinky dink, like ding, 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 ding.
It was.
But it's so good.
It was like an old strip club, actually. Old strip club, like, yeah, those old when they used to play. It was so fun. And you can still find old joints like that in Minneapolis around that time. Joints.
All right, so it was I might do a little share screen here because it was 2010 and Jill and I were sitting in her friend's apartment and we were supposed to do an acoustic show together. And by no means am I a good guitar player like Prince. I'm like a punk musician, so I can play like 3 bar chords. But we sat in Jill's apartment and did an acoustic version of Violet Blue. So do you mind if I share it with everyone, Jill?
Share it.
Because I feel like it was so cool to hear that voice live sounding just like the fucking album. So,
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Rusty. I don't think I'd sang that song in 20 years or something.
It was just one of the best moments of my life. So let's see if I can do the share screen here. All right. Share sound. All right. Can everyone see it or no?
Oh, at Brinsley's house. Yeah.
All right. Let me go ahead and play it.
Hi, it's Jill Jones and Jeremy Gloff, and we're going to do a little something because I missed the show. We had a scheduling problem, but we're going to do this thing and, you know, let you hear something that we worked on. Okay? All right. 1, 2, 3. What's a woman to do? Across the street waits a man she's promised to. And in her presence is another with eyes of violet blue. All aflame, her body when he approaches, steam heat. She closes her eyes and imagines his voice. So sweet, so sweet. 11 minutes and she'll be late. What's a woman to do? Across the street waits a man she's promised to. Indecision rings in the catalyst. Eyes of violet blue. 11 minutes to love is too little, too much. Much, it would stay in my mind and all would be lost if I'm not careful. And you don't want yourself. We already lost 1 minute. For us that's one more year without in it. For us that's one more year things we don't know. And 11 minutes to love. Thank you.
All right.
Wow. Better than I imagined.
Yeah, to sit there and to sit next to that voice, I was like, one of the best fucking moments of my life. So I just had to share that with everybody.
That's
good. That's awesome.
It was great. That was good fun.
Yeah.
And again, in the fantasy world where that song was a big hit, I mean, the world would just be a better place.
Oh my God. And the world is a better place because that song exists.
True.
Yeah. I love it when it comes in. It comes in the funky bass and stuff in the beginning. Yeah. And then the lyrics were like, it kind of seemed weird that he wrote it. Like it says you and him wrote it, but he wrote it, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
It seems like it's from the woman's point of view, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, in a weird way, although yeah, because I was in the middle. We were all there was a triangular situation happening, and it did spurn itself from a letter that had been written, from me to him. So yeah, it was interesting. It was also very hard to determine which part of the triangle he was seeing himself in. As. And then to want to hear me sing it was another kind of twisted. You could go really deep psychology. Like, what is he like? Okay. Right.
It's such a beautiful song. It's so cinematic, and I just consider it a masterpiece, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for me, it's.
I like the way the words kind of cascade and tumble over each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
Listen, I'm going to have to bow out now because I'm looking at
Okay, love. And I know it's almost 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Catch up all night.
Every morning. Maybe I can't chill so for the rest of the day.
It's like the daylight's coming up.
It's horrid, and the birds are saying, I'm going to have to shut my window because the birds keep me awake. The minute they start, I can't sleep. I'm like, oh my God, you know. So, but it's meant to be sunny tomorrow, so I'll sleep in the garden if I have to.
Oh,
thanks. Thank you.
Enjoy. Thanks for letting me be part of it.
Thank you for coming, Neil. Thanks.
We'll do it again with 2 next time.
Yes.
Yeah, no worries, Jeremy. Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.
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 I'm actually going to bow out as well. I don't know if you can see.
I know
my
you're tired too. It's getting late.
But thank you
late.
guys for having me.
Thank you.
Hopefully, I'll be able to watch the rest on the YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much. And happy birthday again.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. Night.
Night.
All right. So do I have the rest of you for the rest of the album? We can zip through.
Let's zip through.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and Jill, any other stories about Violet Blue before we move on?
Violet Blue. No, that's the one story. That is always a perplexing story. It's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was kind of a love letter too. Like I said, he was engaged and we weren't seeing each other. And it was a weird session. It was strange. And it was a very poignant recording session. He did that one specifically. He'd come back from Europe. So that session will always mean a lot to me. It really holds a lot of weight.
And you can hear the weight in the performance,
Mm-hmm.
both on the album and then 20 years later, or whatever, in the apartment.
Yeah, and recording with him was actually pretty magical because for us, I mean, if he, like he always used to say, if he wasn't so crazy, you know, conscious of notes and all that kind of stuff. If he believed it, he said, then he'd keep anything on there if it was believable.
Right.
For me, I mean, yeah, for most of, yeah.
And I also feel like it doesn't sound like anything else that came out of the Prince universe at any time ever. It's just such a singular, just a masterpiece. So thank you for bringing that song into the world.
I mean, I heard that he tried to have a few other people sing it, but I thought if that's true, then he must have been like having like a comedy show.
Yeah.
Because, or it was a cruel joke, because there's a reason why it just, it's not a typical verse, bridge, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus. It is, as Clark said, it just sort of runs along like a train of thought. And good luck. It wasn't really, we'll see.
So what made, how did With You end up on this album? Because it was originally on his second album.
He asked me to do it. He literally called and asked me to do it.
What a strange song to ask you to cover, I feel like. It's probably my least favorite song on the album, to be honest.
I know. I agree.
Well, when we covered this from the Prince album, I think Melissa and I were the only ones who liked the original version.
Right.
I didn't like it.
Right. Because they don't like ballads.
Yeah, nobody likes the ballads.
Yeah. He asked me to do it. It was really strange because it was like, out of all the other things that we had, it was just odd to another psychological mind bender about why would he want me to sing, because he didn't like people doing covers, which was so interesting. There were a few, you know, and I really would like you to sing this song. I'm like, okay. So sometimes you have to go, he called from France, and then David Z and I were like, well, okay, let's try it. You know, he wasn't there for it.
Right.
It was so strange. It was some way to bound me more to him on some level, maybe. I don't know. You guys' guess is as good as mine, because I just thought like, okay, there were songs I liked from his first the other album actually, but this was very interesting. With you.
I always wondered. I was just always like, that's interesting.
I know.
It feels tacked on in that all the other songs sound so original, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, here's this cover. Which
I think it was just his way of. I think it was something for him. It wasn't really for me, and it was a message for me. You know, like I don't know. I think it just went into a deeper layer of some sort, because it really was the odd man out.
In an alternate universe, we lose With You and put 7/7 Bleecker Street on the album.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is so intense.
Yeah, my Janis Joplin love.
Oh my God, so good. All right, so we flipped the album over. All right, I think no one can deny that All Day, All Night is... Oh, Seth is coming back. Awesome.
Oh.
It sounds like Housequake. The beat.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah, the beat in it is Housequake, especially at the end. You can really hear it.
Right.
Oh yeah.
What year did you make this song?
That was 80. Was right after he kind of composed that around Roadhouse Garden era, when he was going to do that show. That was going to be a play.
Okay.
And that was done around Our Destiny. 85.
Okay.
84, 85, 85.
The thing I love about All Day, All Night is you just go wild on the vocals.
It was hard because the octaves, you got to understand, I was singing, I jumped from different octaves in that song. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm thinking my lips, because that range thing was really crazy. And it was hard at first. I recorded it with a lower vocal, and it was okay, a little lackluster, but the octave was too off from my voice. So then I had to just sort of mess around with it. Yeah, I went a little crazy on it. Personally, I would have not mixed in some of the things, but, that mix, I love his version of it a lot. It was hard to capture all of that, but because his is a little slinkier and mine was a little more urgent. But once he started knowing I was able to scream a lot and do all of this stuff, he always liked that. And it was like another effect of,
The first time I heard the album, I honestly was surprised. I'm like, whoa, she went there.
Yeah.
Let's get a groove up in here.
But he was shocked too when he got when we sent it to him and he called the next day. And he was really like, wow, you really went up into the rafters on it. Because we gave him both tracks, like the lower one and then the higher one. Because I was like, oh, I don't know. I just have to. And then he would make the final decision. Like, let's keep it with the energy at the top. Yeah. He'd give notes to David Z or something. They would talk. I would be sleeping and come into the studio and get the notes. But yeah, it was really interesting. That one was funny.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on All Day, All Night?
Again, should have been a freaking huge hit.
Should have been a huge hit, yeah. It's just funky as hell.
Yeah, that you can be my baby, make me feel all right. Yeah. And I love that, my make you feel all right. Like there was a little bit of like from his version, like his vocals and everything, but the BVs were very little, we had to push it, and it was just funky. It was a funky track.
Are you swirling in a wet tornado?
Yeah. That actually was like a tongue twister. Singing it. I'm swirling in a wet tornado. Like over the, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I know we're getting tired, so we'll keep moving through it. For Love. So funky.
Yeah, he loved doing this one. Loved it. Loved, he loved the duet aspect of this. And we did that together, and we had a lot of fun in the studio.
So you did it at the same time? Wow.
Yes. He definitely was hands-on that one.
This is the reason I went through multiple cassette tapes, because this is the one I kept rewinding and listening to repeatedly, which took a toll. So
yeah, it was funky, and he liked a lot of the vocal things I was doing as well, because then he'd jump up and start like dancing and doing things. So yeah, that was that one was incredible because it was just fresh, and you know, recording with him was always so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. On the 12-inch version, there's extra vocals, and so were those recorded at the same time, and then it was edited, and then for the 12-inch version, they just or did you like go in and specifically add extra stuff?
It was all there. Mm-hmm. We always had a lot of stuff left over. Yeah, for sure.
To go back to the inner belt story, the whole trip was just a lot of fun. So by the time you played it live at night, it was like, you got to be kidding that I'm actually going to hear my favorite song off the album live in person. It was like too much to even ask for at that point.
It was so good to.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because the vocal, that too had the octave situation, only in this aspect, we switched it. I was singing a lot of the really low part, and I really learned to embrace my lower tones a lot. Really, the lower I could go actually seemed to help the higher I could go.
Wow.
Because that's one of the things in your music classes, you know, when you're walking down the piano playing, you know, you're imagining walking down the stairs. But I had to match his low, you know, I will tell you, I was even lower than that. For love. It really did expose me to that part of my tone a lot. And I just couldn't let him beat me at having a range where I couldn't stay on in line with him. That was just like not going to happen.
Well, I love that.
Oh, go ahead, Melissa. You go first.
I was going to say, I love the low part. And to me, it kind of reminded me of Shania Twain's like, Feels Like a Woman, like the na-na-na-na-na, that kind of like low.
Yeah, I kind of reminded you of For Love.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Because I know it was 10 years later, but that's what came to mind. But this is my first time hearing it after that. That's why.
Yeah, totally.
I could hear Elvis doing the version.
Elvis.
I think she stole it from you.
And yeah, right. And Elvis was kind of a good reference with My Man and then For Love, because, you know, it was just to see, because later he was not getting off that Elvis trip for a while. And it was like, okay, it was fine for a tongue-in-cheek movement, but I am not going to, like, you know, try to be Elvis Presley.
Right.
But yeah, he went a little nutso on that theory.
Yeah, I just like the first time I heard the album was just so full of surprises. Just like every, you know, from the orchestra on Mia Boca, the lushness of Violet Blue, the wildness of All Day All Night, and then for love I would
I know. I mean, I could see it would really like throw people a little bit. I think that we had another song called Introduce My Sex to Yours, and nobody seems to know where this song is and all this stuff. And it had a lot of breathing on it, which was like, it was a really cool freaking song. And he didn't want that to come out at all, ever. So I thought there must be a bad memory associated with that or whatever that is about. And I've asked often about that song, even with the estate, and they don't know which one I'm talking about. So
interesting.
Sure they don't. Sure they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, because it could have been around Moral Majority. That era too was a song that was for Vanity 6 and Moral Majority. And the Moral Majority tracks that they found were not the song Moral Majority inside of it. This was a political song that he wrote, and it had a lot to do with when Tipper Gore was on us. Remember, you know, she banned a lot of she didn't ban me at the time because I don't think my record was out yet, but they were dabbling with Prince with, you know, there was that group of moms, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Nikki, Sugar Walls, and I think Sex Shooter was on there too.
Yes. And
PMRC.
So he wrote Moral Majority, and then that was supposed to go to Vanity, didn't want to do it. Then Apollonia and them were going to do it, but he ended up not making them a political band. So Apollonia and them were not going to be, damn it, political. But it was great. It was about Moral Majority. moral majority, da 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 da. Moral, I want to let my body be free. Yeah, it was something like that.
Oh my God, my curiosity is so up.
I know. I just, too bad I had a fire in my house. I had a lot of that stuff, but whatever.
Well, we know some of it exists in the vault because in Dwayne's Prince books, he says, "Oh, there's a version by Jill Jones in the vault."
Yeah.
So
yeah, right. And he works for the estate now, right? Mm-hmm.
All right, so the first time I heard My Man, I just loved it. I feel like this is probably like the most accessible like pop song of the album.
If I hadn't probably done the heavy vocal on it, it probably would have been better. Don't I give you everything that you want? I think if I hadn't have gone to the extreme, that one could have been saved. I think just they were like, okay, girls aren't supposed to do this. Girls are supposed to be going, I don't even know, and the thing down, down. That was it. You know what I mean? It was like
instead you were like, baby, baby, baby.
Yeah, come over here. That was like hog tying men up in there. And they were not feeling that.
I just always felt like this was a hit song.
I did too. Just because you all the fun. I mean, we probably could have re-recorded it and put it in a different key and made it, it could have been something. But we didn't do things with any capacity of some point of thinking of only hits. That was what was so weird. We just kind of picked stuff that we liked, which was really strange. So when the label was sitting there, they're like, well, Mia Bocca, and it's not even in Spanish, it's Italian. What the hell? I mean, who are we marketing this to? We have a white woman, you look white. Black people didn't even know I was Black. So, I mean, there was a little bit of pushback from that scene too.
Right.
White people didn't know because there was too much like R&B in it. And then Black people, when I went down to that Jack the Rapper convention, because I was trying to say like, I'm Black. Hey, I'm one of you. They didn't give a shit. Except for Love, when he decided to put that out, because that's what they wanted to put out first.
Okay.
Warner's wanted him out first. And he was like, no, she did this beautiful video and I want to put that out first. I want that to be her mark.
That goes back to like the fiercely independent stance of the front album cover. You know what I mean?
Fiercely independent. Yeah, that, maybe wasn't the wisest decision on a marketing level, but also, but I don't know if they were even able to market some of his stuff at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
They weren't capable on any level. They couldn't market him very properly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think at that time too, it was very much like, R&B and rock are like two separate things, as opposed to like, oh, it's really cool that somebody can actually do both genres at once.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true, because I would have to go up the black and white, up the black charts first during that time. And because nobody really knew what the hell I was at that point, they weren't even going to bother. And I wasn't as Black sounding as Tina Marie was. But then again, Tina Marie kind of duped them by not putting her face on the cover of her record. She was always mad about that. But if they had to put her on, she would never have done it. They would never have played it. I mean, she was mad at my mom for it, and Barry and all of them, but they were right to do it. Just because your Black friends in Venice like you does not mean that white radio or Black radio even, because everybody was sort of very territorial during those days. And, there were only a few, like Vicky Sue Robinson, you could look at and be like, is she Black or is she something? And she had that really jamming song. Tina was just like straight up, they weren't. So that was different. And for me, the songs weren't Black enough. And I wasn't driving a Mercedes Benz in it. And I wasn't looking very like, bougie. So it wasn't going to work, at all in America.
You didn't feel the acceptable archetypes.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Even at that point, Prince had already kind of shown that he could do everything. But when he put a rock tune out, it was still kind of regarded as, oh, isn't that quaint?
Yes.
He can do a rock song. Even
True.
after, a good 3 years of having established that he could easily do that stuff.
That's so true. That's exactly true.
All right, so we're down to the last track, which, of course, is looked at as a classic by everyone. But Baby, You're a Trip, beautiful ballad.
Mm-hmm.
Really powerful performance.
Yeah, and that was, he didn't think I could pull that off, but we did. David Z and I think we stayed in all day doing that. And what's always great is whereas I would do other people's tracks and then they would study and learn different things, Prince was kind of like that for me. I could listen and do his things and some of those licks, and he was really impressed. There's a longer section in that song that got edited down.
Okay.
It was a little longer but the church part. And we did an edit in the middle, but and it was great. But he thought it was as comparable to his version, and in fact better.
I think your version's better. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we really. That was David Z had the ability to even look at some of Prince's stuff and know when the peak was and where to emphasize things. So I give him full credit for that song, to be honest, because I don't even think Prince was too close to that song to even imagine it in that capacity.
Right. Does anyone else have anything they want to add about Baby, You're a Trip?
The brass at the end was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
It was an unbelievable song. Your version, I think, is the quintessential version.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And the orchestration of it is just gorgeous.
It was great. I mean, doing all the backing vocals and stuff, it was a lot of work that day. I think studio was stinky when I left. It was just just sweating, getting that together. It was Shakespeare.
Yes, that's who that is.
I saw him peeking around you earlier.
Uh-huh.
So that was just
amazing.
you? That was just you doing all the background and different. I was wondering about that because you can definitely hear the layers.
Right.
And I heard him, but I didn't know if somebody else was singing. But.
Yeah, no, I was there was no session checks for backing vocals for my stuff. Yeah. So that's it, guys.
Well, Jill, I know that there's been times in your life where thinking about this first album wasn't exactly on top on your priority list, because I'm sure it's, tied to not always some good memories, some bad ones, just like everything in life.
Yeah, some disappointments. Yeah. But I've learned to embrace it. It obviously had to be made, no matter how many years it took to get it done. But yeah, I was proud of it because the thing that sewed it up for me was seeing him before he passed away. And we spoke specifically about this album. And he was like, we really did a really great record. And I said, I know we did. I said, can you believe all the people now that want to talk about it? And he was like, yeah, he was more like, because, we were really disappointed with the sales.
Right.
And he was also being leveraged a lot by things of radio not wanting to play any of his artists unless he did things for radio or all that stuff. And it just owning a label took him down a road that really exposed him a lot to the corruption in the business. Right. I think it was a lot for him. And I don't blame him. It was more than he bit off more. And he didn't have enough people who could protect him from some of that. So I think that's why he might have let it go by the wayside a little bit and maybe later do the releases with the girls here and there. It wasn't, he'd always have to do an offer with MTV or something. They would want something. It was all transactional. when my video got banned on MTV, yet again, you know, those bitches, I can't believe I'm still a Democrat after what they fucking did to me in my career, to be honest. But I don't know. I try to get over it, but the reality is that you get leveraged in all of it. And everybody else does too.
Right.
Yeah, everybody else. I was just reading Debbie Harry's book, which is fantastic. If you guys get a chance to read her book, it's incredible.
The face valuer, face.
Yes, incredible. I mean, I didn't know they were as broke as they were when they got slammed with the IRS. It's this repeat story that just everybody has, and the industry needs to really be looked into and investigated. Sure. Just again, it's time. It's way past time. It's one of the most corrupt industries. People want to go on about pedophilia and the ageism. I mean, everybody's freaking young.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're bending you over right and left. It's an industry that needs to be really turned on its head. And the recycling of youth. And everybody out there like, oh, we don't, they're also freaked out about young people and trafficking, you know, nowhere to look but the music industry.
It's true. And I feel like.
Talk about being able to get somebody on a plane in a hot second or it's the music industry is where you need to look.
Because artists aren't growing into their 30s and 40s like they once sometimes did.
No. They won't, because the concept of and the hypocrisy in the masses to be on one hand saying they're against it, but they feed it. They feed the demand by, oh, look at this little girl. She's singing. She's great. They're freaking kids. It's like they feed the demand and the obsession. So it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. And there will be more horror stories long after none of us are here if they don't deal with it.
Sometimes I feel like such an outsider because, you know, a lot of my friends, oh, I love that new song. Like, I don't want to hear what a 17-year-old has to say. Like, that's not where I'm at in my life. That's not what I relate to. So, you know.
Yeah, but it's just auto-tuned garbage. I mean, it's like there's not any artistry left. It's just, it's not, if the person was actually writing the songs, maybe that might be interesting. Like, I like Lana Del Rey because she writes her own songs.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
But there's like 30 people on a song. And then you have all of those people who have publishers within different publishing companies. So the premise is that everybody's in on this pie, and your Billie Eilish's, and can we all just agree? I just don't want to hear any more white women trying to sound like Billie Holiday anymore. Portishead took me down a road. The Billie Eilish's, all of them, they become like Chase Bank or Citibank. They're too big to fail. People used to put out an album, and it would be like, that sucked. I didn't like that album. Not anymore. They'll play a bad album for you, like of these people's songs over and over and over. And you're like, this shit is whack. But they do it. And the reason is because people are too big to fail, because there's so many industries spiderwebbed into their lives from their publishers, from the label, from the marketing people, from the ad company, from the brands. So you're stuck for a decade with shitty ass music. And then their artist turns 30, and then and then this other thing that they all come up with, you got to have something wrong with you before you release a record. Who's that child that Demi Lovato? I'm going, damn, she's gonna pull a fingernail off. And I wrote this album after I wrote my fingernail. I get it, but it's my new release. It's just starting to be like, come on.
She's now gender neutral, so she's Demi Lovato.
Yes, it's like, I'm not just a slagger, but it's just like, girl, get a grip. Please just do music. But this is what their managers, and the same managers who will fuck them even harder later, and the IRS who's going to get involved because somebody didn't file something. They're not even like, of age. It's too much for me. I see it. I see the same people. And now managers are asking for shit for perpetuity.
I feel it's manufactured.
They work on a project with you, and now it's like, I want a percentage of that. forever. It's like really managers asking for 25%. Then give me a break.
Yeah.
Bullshit. So don't get me started on that nonsense. I just kept seeing everybody has a thing like, oh, I had Crohn's disease. So, and I just decided to write this album. I was sitting on the phone.
Well, that sounds like shit. So there you
go. You're always good.
The only one that we allowed Gloria to do it after she got in the bus accident. But after that.
Yes, true. I mean, everybody was more mysterious back in the day. And I think, but see, Prince he'd have to be blabbing on a talk show all the time to be like, well, you know what I think, blah, blah, blah. And that's just not who our era was.
Right.
Now it's like a little TMI. And if you don't have enough stories or crap to tell, you don't have a new release with 30 different writers on it.
These people aren't interesting. They're just like,
I just joined up with a new charity and we're going to put out for this, it's just got a very disingenuous part to it at this point.
I mean, it would have been nice to have known a little more about Prince at the time because he was so mysterious, but
exactly.
But I mean, I think if we knew every little time he took a shit, it would be so we wouldn't want to know that,
Or if he really told you who he wrote a song about. You'd be like, really? Oh.
Well, it's interesting. In Dwayne's book, he talks about the order that the songs were recorded in and all this stuff, and that he was there for 16 hours doing these marathon things. And it's like you do learn a little bit about the artistic process that he had going on. But one day he was writing "Sign of the Times," and the next day he was writing "Housequake," and it was what the fuck was going through his head between the time he went to sleep and the time he woke up? And I mean.
A cup of coffee.
He just pivoted in such different directions. I mean, it's mind blowing.
I mean, he totally lived that. I was thinking about when I was looking at his hands and I hadn't seen them, and I noticed, he had a little bit of, we all get a little, as we get older, little knuckles get bigger and all of that. But a lot of people will say, oh, he worked 18, 24 hours. I have pains in my hands from using them, but using your hands for 18 damn hours. I mean, he had started to be the equivalent of working in the factory in India, instead of sewing, his hands. It's I started thinking that God, that's really, I just took it for granted. He's working all night, but his hands were moving the whole time. No wonder they freaking hurt anybody who has a little bit of arthritis and anything. Can you imagine?
Right.
And I was he's he was making cushions or something. I've seen it. And the back and the hunched over. My God. Ooh. He didn't have HR to call. Well, thank you guys so much for this stuff. This was fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, let me I have a little something I've been thinking that I want to say. And I do gotta say this is controversial, but I think I've even given up on Madonna lately, which I hate to say. Really? I stood by her, but
you did.
It was hard because when we grow up, music was such an important part of culture in a way that it's not now. True. I mean, just unified people. So many of the people I grew up listening to from when I was a kid just became disappointing. And Jill, I just want to thank you for still being an inspiration today. You're just as cool in 2021 as you were when I saw you in a book, not having known you. So, maybe your album wasn't the biggest hit, but it just became this secret society of people that knew about the album. And that's so much cooler in some ways than something in the top 5 hit. And the people that were meant to find you, they found you.
Found me.
And you made a difference to them. You spoke to a level in a class of people that was just a little bit deeper, a little bit more intelligent. I think, give yourself that pat on the back that you just created something that made a difference in the world in a really special way.
Thank you so much. I feel like I've made a lot of great friends through it. And I would have to say that my lot of the fans in the Purple world are actually the best. Because I find them to be a lot more heady and cerebral. And I don't have the superficial friends.
Oh, no.
Fan base.
Not for long, at least.
In the in the group. I have the ones who are the deep thinkers and maybe the loners or the adventurers and all of that. And I love it. And a lot of them are incredibly creative.
Yep.
That's the only way. Like everyone was so damn creative. And
So
I met you guys.
I feel like maybe you didn't record the second album that would have sounded like the Cocteau Twins, but all the people that also listened to the Cocteau Twins found you.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Here.
Well, Jill, happy birthday. We just all love you so much.
Happy birthday.
Yeah,
Thank you. Love
Let's
you
do
guys.
this again for the album too.
Yes.
At some point.
Definitely. I love that painting behind you. Is that Joni Mitchell?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if it was Egan Schiele or Joni Mitchell. Oh, hi. Oh my goodness.
Hey,
All
Jill,
right.
Let's get late.
Yes.
when
Deja.
you
Nice to meet you, Deja.
It's nice to meet you. I'm sorry I was so quiet. I was just listening.
Oh,
the
it's
entire
okay.
time.
No. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. I mean, I just like slagged off Gen Z. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened with my camera and my microphone, but I'm sorry. I just want to say sorry.
Oh, no.
Oh, we're just glad
No,
you're
you're
here.
fine.
Glad you're here. Thank
And Clark,
you.
did you have something you wanted to say before we sign off?
Yeah, Jill, when you and Eric eventually get down here to visit us in Tampa, we'll take you out for Cuban food, and we promise there won't be any guava involved.
Oh God, yes, no, thank you. Guava pie. It's just, I still remember it. You remember that Tropicano place on Sunset? It was in Silver Lake. It's not there anymore. Tropical, I think it's called. Yeah, I still remember the guava pies. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll skip that when you.
Yeah, we'll skip the guava
Okay.
pie.
Yeah.
All right. And I would like to get down to Florida. You know, if you guys could get rid of what's his face. I can't stand DeSantis.
Rick.
We're working on it.
Oh, what is his name? Rick
No,
Moranis?
he was the last one. Rick
Oh,
Scott
no,
was the
not
last
Rick
one.
Moranis. Wait a
Ron
minute.
DeSantis.
Yeah, he's horrible.
Wait,
horrible.
Rick Moranis from Ghostbusters would be much better.
Much better.
Yeah,
Governor.
Rick Moranis is fine. Yeah.
All right, friends, until we all meet
right,
again.
love you
know
all.
we will. Love you all.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy
Night,
birthday,
night.
Jill.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Happy
this.
birthday.
Bye.